بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So what we're going to talk about today, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, is the opposite of worshiping Allah alone. And that's a shirk. So before I start, I'm going to mention some words to you that I'm going to be repeating over and over again, and I may or may not translate it every time. So I'm going to tell you some like vocab words. Just get used to having me say it. Number one is something called Shirk al-Akbar. Shirk al-Akbar, which means major shirk. Major shirk. And don't worry, I'm going to explain what shirk is. And then Shirk al-Asghar. Shirk al-Asghar, which means minor shirk. You have major shirk, you have minor shirk. All right? And then the other word is ar-Riya. Ar-Riya, which means to show off. Ar-Riya, it means to show off. And another one is Sum'ah. The Riya is you're showing off so people can see you. And Sum'ah is you're showing off in a way where people can hear you. You're showing off in a way where people can hear you. Because Riya is from the word Ra'a, to see something. And Sum'ah is from the word Sami'a, which means to hear something. So one way you're showing off, for example, when you're praying and you know that people are behind you, or somebody walked in the room and you're taking a long time to pray. MashaAllah, this brother in some deep ibadah. He's just taking all his time. He praying and he in sujood and he just, but that crying part, and that's so people can hear. Normally when he's by himself, when he's at home or she's at home, they'd have been like, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. But when they're in front of people, Allahu Akbar. And they'll be like, Sami Allahu liman ham. And they just, mashallah, they draw it out and beautify their voice. Why? Because they know people can hear them. That's sunnah. That's what Tawheed and Shirk is all about. Because it's supposed to be between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people who see it, that's exactly right. They don't know. But because they don't know, they think it what? They be like, man, mashallah, man, that brother blowing. Allahu Akbar, that sister got a beautiful voice. So they're thinking a certain way about you because of what the image that you're trying to project. But that's not the real you. And that's why it's shirk. Because you're doing it for them and you ain't doing it for Allah. So now, shirk, right? The word shirk is from sharika. And the word sharika, right? The word sharika, it means like to associate or to have a partner in something. So for example, if I had a business and I had business partners, in Arabic, my business partner would be called sharik. He would be a sharik, that he's my partner. Or if we were to do something together, right? You could also call them mushtarik, someone who was involved in or participated with, right? So that's so you get the concept and the idea of what shirk is. It's to have partners. More than, how many? It's more than one, right? That's what shirk means, linguistically. That's where it comes from. Oh, and by the way, page 60. In the book, it's page 60. So this associating partners, this more than one, and we said Tawheed means what? It means one, right? And so now shirk is the opposite. Tawheed is just one, that you're singling out Allah, that he's the only one who creates, that he's the only one that provides, that he's the only one who, right? That's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And then Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah, us worshiping Allah, that he's the only one that we pray to, that he's the only one that we fast for, he's the only one that we do acts of worship for. One. But shirk is the exact opposite. That you either saying that there's more than one God. From Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. For example, y'all ever heard of Zoroastrians or Magians? They're out of Persia. They say there's two gods, two main gods. Light and dark, a God of light and the God of darkness, right? Which is Mazda and Agrumenu. But they have two gods, which is exactly different from Islam. We say one and only one. They're saying two. Anybody want to tell me who says three? Christians. They say there's three, right? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That they're all distinct and unique, and they're right, but at the same time they're one. No matter which way you slice it, at the end of the day, the moment you said the word three, we got problems. I don't care how you explain it to mean that it's really one. If you've ever heard the explanation about the egg with the shell and the egg white and the yolk, or what's another example they give? Ice cube. The ice cube, right? That it's a solid, liquid, and vapor, right? Nah. The moment you said the word three, khalas, that's not monotheism no more. That's not tawheed anymore. We got problems. I don't care how you explain it. We're not going to get into that. But if you look at Hindus, over 333 million gods they have. And I'm not making that number up. If you go to a world religions book, 333 million different gods they got for everything. War, business, marriage, fertility, death, life. They got a God for everything. Right? And there's so many others, and we can think of others like the Romans, the Greeks, all of them, right? With that whole, with Hercules and Zeus and Hades and so on and so forth. But every time, everything that's common is what? That there's more than one. Just so you make it is that it's clear and distinct in your mind. You have Islam on the one side, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying there's only one God. There's only one who brings life. There's only one who gives death. And you have these other different, and these are different real examples that we see, and those same examples were there during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, some of the Arabs they used to say, or the Arabs of that time, they used to say that God has daughters, and those daughters are the angels. Some people used to worship the stars, some used to worship the moon, some used to worship the sun. Christians were there during that time. The Yahud or the Jews were there at that time. But they all had one thing in common. They all did what? They all associated partners with Allah. They all said that God has somebody who's helping him out. Or there's some people that he has to consult with. Or there's some that he has to work things out and then he makes a decision in one way or another. And Allah mentions it in the Qur'an when they are asked, why do they do that? Because they acknowledged Allah. The Arabs, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they acknowledged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They said that he's there and that he's the greatest of God. They said, okay, if you believe in him and you only worship, or you believe in him and that he does these certain things, creating and so on and so forth, why do you worship these other gods? And you know what they said? They said, لِيُقَرِّبُنَا Zulfa. They said, we just doing that to bring us closer to Allah. And that's the same exact things that Christians say. The same exact logic. That what? I'm bad. I'm dirty. I'm unclean. I'm not like the Prophet. How can we go directly to God and ask him for what we need? How can we go and ask him for mercy and forgiveness and so on and so forth? But we done so many bad things. How can we do that? We're not clean. So we go to this little God, this little statue, who's better than us. It's clean. He has nothing haram. We pray to him and ask him, and then he's going to go to God for us. It's the same exact logic as the Christians. Same exact thing. What? Jesus is the Son of God, right? And he's all right. He's the Lamb of God because he's pure, because he's clean, right? They say what? You accept him as for salvation, and then he'll go to God on your behalf. And it sounds nice. It sounds good, but you know what you're actually doing when you do that? You're actually saying that Allah, God Almighty, that his mercy is limited. And you need some kind of vessel to get to his mercy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his mercy is so vast and so all-encompassing and embracing that you don't need a person. You don't need a thing. You don't need something to get to Allah's mercy. Allah wants you to come directly to him. He doesn't want anything between you and him. There should be nothing between you and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you say, I'm going to commit shirk, when I'm going to have somebody else that I go to first, you're putting an extra step to get to the forgiveness of Allah, to the love of Allah, to the mercy of Allah, You're putting something between you. You're putting a barrier between you and all that Allah has to offer. Does that make sense, y'all? And that's what shirk is when you explain it. But the technical definition for a shirk is to associate partners with Allah in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If you wanted a definition, the definition of shirk is to associate partners with Allah in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Whether it's in regard to His lordship, which we mentioned, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, or whether it's in our worship of Him, Tawheed al-Ibadah, or whether it's in His names and attributes, which I'll inshallah be talking about if we finish this inshallah today. So tayyib. So why do we need to learn about shirk? If we're already all Muslims here and it's no problem, and why would we ever do that? We're not going to bow, inshallah, you're not going to bow down to some rock, and you're not going to, have a little statue in your house. Inshallah, we're not going to do that. Because the thing is if we said Tawheed is the most important concept in Islam, the oneness of Allah, that is the most important thing. It's the reason why you're here, Sheikh. It's the reason why you exist. It's the reason why you're breathing. It's the reason why Allah revealed the books. It's the reason why He sent prophets. Tawheed is the most important thing. Shirk, if it's the exact opposite, that is the most dangerous thing. It is the worst crime that a human being can ever commit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرِكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala certainly, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرِكَ بِهِ, that He does not forgive someone associating partners with Him. وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. And He forgives after that anything else for whoever He wants to. But shirk, He does not forgive. Associating partners with Him, Allah does not forgive. And you'd be like, well, wait a minute. Some of us, if we weren't Muslim before, doesn't that mean we were committing shirk and then we became Muslim? Does that mean Allah's never going to forgive us? No, it does not mean that. What it does mean, though, is if you die as somebody who associates partners with Allah, and that's something that you are ongoingly doing, then you will not be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the one sin He does not forgive. Anything else that Allah sees fit, He might forgive. Anything else. Murder, the most heinous crime you can think of, Allah may forgive. It might have been you became weak, it was in a moment of passion, it was whatever, you got corrupted by power, it was too much money, she was too beautiful, whatever it might be, Allah can forgive. But this one thing, you going against your very reason for existence, He will not forgive that if you die like that. And that's why we have to learn about it. Because it's so dangerous. The consequences of it are so dangerous. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah, Jama'ah, does that make sense? Okay, alhamdulillah, good. What about people who don't know about Tawheed and Shirk and about Islam? Are they not going to be forgiven on the Day of Judgment? Tayyib. So, individually, we cannot say this person or that person or this person is not going to become Muslim. In general, we say people who die as non-Muslims, that's a wrap. Because it's not me saying that. That's what Allah said. As I quoted a verse to you. I didn't say something of my own opinion. Allah said in the Qur'an that He does not forgive shirk. So in general, anybody who dies as a mushrik, as a non-believer, in general, they will not be forgiven by Allah. However, I don't know the individual condition of every single person when they pass away. Right? I don't know their condition. So I can't say individually that person is going to hell. I know in general, if he died as a mushrik, that's what Allah said, that's where he's going to go. But I can't say definitively that person, so on and so forth. And likewise, the people of Iman, the people of Tawheed, the people who believe, the people of Taqwa, and so on and so forth. In general, we say those people are going to paradise. But can I say that, Shaykh, you got a ticket to Jannah in your back pocket? I don't know. Because he's here now praying and he's with us and the Muslims and so on and so forth. But Allah, I don't know how he's going to die. Does that make sense? طيب. So in general, we say, because this is what Allah said. These people, if they fit that category, khalas. That's why we're concerned about our family. Those people who ain't Muslim, that's why you be concerned with them. That's why you're worried about them. Right? Now, what does that mean though? So what does that mean as far as like how we deal with them? For example, when it comes to pray, when someone dies, for example, if they died as far as we can see as non-Muslims, then in terms of the rulings in this life, they're to be treated as non-Muslims. So we don't bury them, or excuse me, they shouldn't be buried in our cemetery, right? We don't pray for them. You can't inherit from them because non-Muslims, right? However, on the day of judgment, Allahu A'lam, maybe that person, maybe some Muslim visited him while he was on his deathbed and we didn't see, we didn't know. Allahu A'lam. But ultimately, that's between who? On the day of judgment, that's between him and Allah. But as far as we're concerned, this person died as a non-Muslim, whatever. Paul Walker. Y'all heard of him, right? The actor or whatever, right? Who got wrapped around that pole, whatever, when he died in a car accident or whatever. As far as we can see, as far as I know, he's a non-Muslim. But can I definitively say Paul Walker right now is in the hellfire? I don't know. I can't say that. Because have you seen the hellfire, brother? Sheikh, you seen it? You ain't seen it, right? Sister, you seen the hell? I don't know. Y'all seen it? Once in a while? No? None of us have seen it. So how can I say who's there and who's not? I can't. You seen paradise? No, none of us have. So I can't speak on that definitively and be like, yeah, this person, so-and-so, is in paradise. There's only two who can do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which he did. If you look in the Surah Al-Masad, he said, Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. Allah specifically mentioned the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ is going to be in the hellfire, him and his wife. Allah mentioned him by name. He's going to be in the hellfire. Khalas, that's a wrap. Can nobody say, well, maybe he's going to be in paradise because he's the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ? Nah, because Allah said, khalas, ain't nobody saying after that, or at least they shouldn't. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned certain people, or Allah mentioned certain people to be in paradise, that he's pleased with them. Allah mentioned a number of times that he's pleased with the companions. Allah mentions, for example, all the people who pledged allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Hudaybiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الَّذِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Allah is pleased with all those people who shook your hand and they pledged allegiance. Allah is pleased with them. Khalas, you can't say nothing after that. Well, maybe they did something wrong or they committed kufr after the Prophet ﷺ. No, Allah spoke and that's it. Khalas, ain't nothing to say after that. That's one, right? I said Allah can speak about it definitively, whether someone's in the hellfire or going to paradise. And also the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. On a number of occasions, all right? For example, the Prophet ﷺ stated about his other uncle, Abu Talib, that he's in the hellfire. And he said he's receiving the least punishment in the hellfire. Right? He said that he'll have sandals or shoes that are made of fire and that it will be enough to boil his brains. Khalas, we can't say nothing after that. Because there are some people, they actually do this. They'll say afterwards, well, he's the uncle of the Prophet. We can't say that he's in the hellfire because we love the Prophet and we want to be, everything about the Prophet is like, khalas. You don't love Abu Talib more than the Prophet ﷺ did. And he said that about him. Khalas, that's a wrap. Khalas, the Prophet ﷺ spoke. And then the other one is about people being in paradise. He said that's an example of it saying someone's in the hellfire and being punished, and an example of someone being in paradise. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned a number of companions. For example, in one of the battles, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the masjid, he had like a fundraiser. He had a fundraiser because jihad was coming up. And they were going to be fighting, and the army that they were going to face was more than 170,000. And they were allied with another group, so it was going to be even more. So anyways, when he's doing this fundraiser, he said, who's going to prepare or pay for the army for like a battalion? وَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. And he will have paradise. So some people, they brought some money, some brought whatever they had, some brought. Even there were some Sahaba, they went, they had no money. They made a deal. They will work part-time for someone else. They didn't even have money. They borrowed some and said, I will work for you part-time, but I want something so I can come to give to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, and for that person is Jannah. He didn't even have nothing. He went and made a deal just so he can work part-time and get something, just so he can give something to them, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so Uthman ibn Affan, he stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I will prepare 100 camels with their ropes and their saddles and everything that's needed. 100. And then the Prophet, and then he said, Khalas. So he said for Uthman ibn Affan, Lahul Jannah. Doesn't stop there. The Prophet ﷺ kept asking. And then Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he stood up again. He said another 100 camels with their ropes and their saddles and everything that's needed. Khalas. Doesn't stop there. He stood up again. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, every time. 100 camels with the ropes and the saddles and everything that's needed, Ya Rasulullah. I give it. And every time the Prophet ﷺ said about him, what? He's in Jannah. He's in paradise. And some narrations said he did that 7 times. Some narrations said he did it 10 times. How many camels?
100 ropes and saddle.
How many?
100.
Altogether?
700 to 1,000.
700 to 1,000. 1,000 camels. You know what that means? If you try to calculate that in our times, that's millions of dollars. Because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in another hadith, لَأَنْ يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِكَ رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ حُمْرِ النِّعَمِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides one person by you and your efforts is better for you than a red camel. And a red camel at that time was like the most expensive commodity that you could have. And he's given 100 every time. 100, boom, 100, boom, 100, boom. So if you think about the most expensive commodity at that time is a red camel, that would be like somebody having like a Tesla today, or like a Ferrari, or a, you know what I'm saying, like a really expensive car. And he's given 100 of them. I mean, in our times, that's millions of dollars. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he was a millionaire in that time in their standards. But my point here, the whole point, reason why I wanted to mention that is what? The Prophet ﷺ said he's in Jannah. Can anybody else? I don't care how big his imam on his head is. I don't care how big his sheikh is. I don't care what group he is or what ideology he's from. Can anybody come and say Uthman ibn Affan is not in Jannah now? That he maybe, possibly, sort of, kind of, Allahu A'lam, he's somewhere else? No. It's a wrap. Khalas. The Prophet ﷺ said, khalas. Does that make sense? Okay. So, the only people who can speak definitively of that, just to summarize, is Allah and His Messenger about who's in hell and who's in paradise. As when it comes to us, we only say what Allah and His Messenger have said, and we speak in general. I hope that makes sense. Now, so about this shirk, this associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is this something so dangerous? As I already mentioned, we said what? Number one, that it's something that Allah will never, ever forgive. Never. If you die on shirk, khalas, it's a wrap for you. And we mentioned the ayah already. In Allah la yaghfiru an yushrika bihi wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalika liman yasha. That's in Surah Al-An'am. No, excuse me. The Surah An-Nisa, Surah An-Nisa. An yushraka bihi. Now, jazakallah khair. So, the other thing is that the Prophet, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said that if they had associated partners with Him or others with Him, nothing they did would have been of any use. And that's in Surah Al-An'am. If they had associated partners with Allah, then all of their things, every action that they do is rendered useless. And that's why shirk is so dangerous. If you associate partners with Allah in any way, then it very well could mean that your deeds are worthless. They're no good. No matter how much you pray, no matter how much you fast, but you committing shirk on the side, khalas, all of those deeds are no good. Now, the other thing now is that there are 2 types of shirk. There are 2 types of shirk. We said one is major, shirk al-akbar, and shirk al-asghar. So the first one, major shirk. Major shirk, as it's mentioned in your book, it says this involves directing any act of worship to other than Allah. Therefore, directing words or deeds that Allah loves to Him alone testifies to the monotheism and true faith, while directing them to other than Allah constitutes an act of disbelief and shirk. What that means is major shirk takes you outside of the fold of Islam. You are no longer, someone who does that, someone who commits major shirk is considered a non-Muslim. So some examples of that. If you were to pray to anything else other than Allah, just like when we pray Isha, if you pray to some sheikh, some scholar, which they do in some places, unfortunately. There are some masjids, if you go there, there will be right there, right? You see how it's kind of like a, what's it called? Conclave. Anyways, how it's kind of like a shape like this, or whatever. In some places, they have a picture of a sheikh there. Some sheikh. And all the people, every time they make sujood, every time they bow down, it's to that picture. That's shirk. You are praying to that person now. When we were in Medina, when I was in Medina, you would see it all the time. The qibla, right, is one way. It's that way. All right? The grave of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is this way. There's like a walk, you could walk through. There's a door to the masjid. Let's say this is the front of the masjid. There's a door, side entrance where you can enter in, and you walk all the way through, and you would walk by the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. It would be to your left, all right? To your left. And to your right is the qibla. Y'all with me? Some people, and we would be watching, and we sitting here, we done came from America, we done came from all these different countries. We came to learn about Tawheed, and we would see Muslims, born Muslims. They got beards like this, big beards, and they wearing thobes and everything. He's not facing the qibla. He's facing the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. He say, Ya Rasulullah, my wife is not having a baby. Please help her have a baby. He'd be like, oh, Ya Rasulullah, my business is failing. Help me have my business. He's in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. He's in the house of Allah. He's in the house of Allah, and he's calling on somebody else. Can you imagine at your house, Akhi? Somebody come to your house as a guest in your house, and then they ask your son or somebody else for something? Like, why are you asking him? This is my house. What are you going to ask him for? This is my house. That would make no sense. Or if he asked another guest in your house. Let's say you had like 4 or 5 guests, and one of those guests turned around and asked another guest, hey, can I get some water, brother? Like, what's wrong with you? That's disrespectful. And that's exactly what shirk is. It's the ultimate disrespect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you would ask someone else, let alone someone who's dead. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passed away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innaka mayyit wa innahum mayyitun, that they have passed and you're also going to pass. That they have passed away, they have passed, and you're going to also die. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's dead. And it's the masjid, it's the house of Allah. How are you going to ask somebody else? So al-muhim, but we would see people doing that, where they would pray to the dead. Not just to the Prophet ﷺ, they would go to other graves. There's the graveyard, it's called al-Baqi', next to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. And people would go there. They would be like, okay, this is the grave of Aisha radiallahu anha, or this is the grave of so-and-so, or this sahaba, or this sahaba. They would go to the grave. It's nothing but dirt and rocks. And they would go there and they would pray to that sahabi. Please help me. Please give me what I need. I'm sick. I need this. I need that. And they would pray to that person. Right? And again, that's what? That's shirk. Because they should be asking who? And something they should be asking Allah, but instead they've associated someone else with what only Allah can answer. They associated and gave it to somebody else, and they asking somebody else instead. And that's how they're associating partners with Allah. That they might even believe that Allah can answer, but they think somebody else could answer too. Or it might even be worse. They might even believe that Allah can't answer and only this person can answer. That's even worse. But at the end of the day, it's still leading to the same place, which is the hellfire. But major shirk does what? Takes you outside of the fold of Islam. Another example, not only like praying to other idols, or like making dua. Any act of worship, if you're doing it for anyone else, physical acts of worship, or even the acts of worship in your heart, can be shirk akbar. For example, if you're afraid of, you have an unnatural fear of unseen forces, and you think those forces can either harm you or help you, that's shirk. For example, horoscope. I gotta read my horoscope today. I'm a Leo. I gotta make sure, see if I got anything good coming my way this month, or if I got anything bad that's gonna happen to me. So they go to the horoscope thinking what? That it's gonna either bring them some good, and they actually start acting and behaving on it. Somebody be like, nah, I'm not gonna go to work today because, it says, I'm gonna get into it with my boss and I'm gonna have a bad day if I go. And people start actually acting on it. Superstitions, right? Or either something to bring them benefit or to cause them some harm. And why I said an unnatural fear, because there's a natural type of fear. For example, if a lion was in this room, I'm sure everybody would have a healthy dose of some natural fear, as they should. That's natural fear. If you saw a poisonous snake running up on you and you got scared, don't worry, that's natural. You're not committing shirk if you did that. You have natural fear in your heart. But if you're afraid that somebody all the way over in Britain, if you get him mad, that he's going to do some bing, and that you might die, that he can just, that he can do that to you, and you're afraid of him more than you're afraid of Allah, that's shirk. And people do it all the time. It may not be as common for us, but we see it sometimes around in no 13th floor, black cats, step on a crack, you break your mama's back, walking under a ladder, it's bad luck, breaking mirrors, the broom. Oh, that's a new one. What's that? Knock on wood, right? Knock on wood. If you say something, right, you got to knock on wood because you don't want to jinx it, right? All of these things, this is a kind of shirk. And what's happened? Black Friday? No, not quite. Not quite. That's all about business. That's all about unhealthy consumerism. Allah musta'an. May Allah protect us. Buying a bunch of stuff that you don't need. But that's not quite shirk, right? But the point here is what? Shirk is basically, in essence, what it is your heart in some way, whether for good or for fear of some evil, your heart is connected to something else. The way that it should only be connected to Allah. So when I'm making dua, right? Because why is it shirk when that person goes to a grave and asks a sheikh? Why is it shirk? His heart should only be thinking that Allah will answer my dua. Allah will give me good. Allah will give me what I need. Allah will, right, benefit me. I may not even understand it. I may not see it. I may not know how, but I know Allah in some unnatural, unseen way, I know Allah can take care of me. Your heart should only be connected to Allah like that. But when it's connected to something else, that means you have hope in that thing. And that's what I mean by an action of the heart. Now your heart is connected. And because of it starts there. Once it goes from there, because of that belief and that idea, that's when you start doing the action. That's when you start praying to the grave, because of that belief in your heart. Or like I said, the unnatural fear. Because there's a natural fear, there's natural love, there's natural hope. Natural fear, I already gave the example of like some wild beast or animal come running up in here. That's natural for you to be afraid. But like I said, if you are afraid that, I could just stand over here and just like with my mind beams, knock you out your chair and hurt you. That's unnatural. That you're attributing to me now some like superpowers, like I'm some X-Men or something like that, akhi, and I could do whatever I want to you. And if you are afraid like that, you start doing whatever I tell you to do. Like I'll be like, yeah, go do this. Give me some money. And if you give me the money, then don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. And even, same thing, when we was in Saudi, there used to be people like that. People who said that they practice magic, and they'll call you. Let's say, for example, Wallahu musta'an, we used to read about this in the newspaper. Somebody's grandmother's sick with cancer. Somehow, some way, this person, another person, he's a sorcerer, he'll find out about this person's situation, maybe through a relative or something like that, and he'll call and be like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. He'll call like the grandson or the granddaughter. Like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, oh, who are you? Yeah, I know you're going through some tough times, right? How do you know? Yeah, oh, I know. I have some power. I have forces that I work with. Oh, then tell me something. It's your grandmother, isn't it? She got cancer, don't she? But we didn't tell nobody. We didn't tell nobody. Yeah, I know. Look, just put $10,000 in my bank account and don't worry. You see how I knew all those things? I'll even help you out. I'll give her the cure and everything. Just put some money in my bank account. So many people used to fall for that because they're desperate. Grandmother has cancer, that's their grandma. You know what I'm saying? That's jiddati. Like, she's been through so many things and we going through all this and they crying and they done tried to go so many doctors and so on and so forth. So they weak. And they take advantage of it and they give them the money. And he be like, okay, I want you, take some of her hair, ball it up, put it in this corner over somewhere else and, read a couple things, say some stuff. And people would do it. Brothers, and inshallah, one day, if I remember, I will bring you some of the stuff that they make people do. Wallahi, they make people do some of the worst things. They would do things like tell somebody take the Qur'an, they'll tell them and wipe it in the toilet. Why? Because if you do that, I'll have power, right? If you do that, I have the power now. I got my jinn, he'll take care of what you need. But you got to do that for me. People, can you imagine? People would do that. People would do it because they want some help or whatever. But what? He's got an unnatural fear. He's got an unnatural fear, he or she, in their heart, that this person has control to harm them in some unnatural, unknown way. Does that make sense? Same thing like ghosts, right? And even sometimes, even Muslims, sometimes they fought, matter of fact, about 8 times out of 10, Muslims fall into this too. Somebody be like, he got a little tick. They be like, oh, he got a jinn. Something wrong with him. We got to read Qur'an on him. Or brother, he making wudu too much. And it may be, but not, 8 times out of 10, it's not. He might have some mental health condition. It might be some chemical imbalance. He might just need some therapy. Or maybe he's OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. Whatever it might be. It might be something, but a lot of times, that's the first thing Muslims go to. It must be the jinn. They feel a little bit depressed. Oh, it must be the jinn. Some things is going bad in their life. Oh, it must be the jinn. Just read some Qur'an on me. Brother, we've been reading Qur'an on you for a month, and you still ain't feeling better because it might not be some jinn. It might be because you clinically depressed and need to get some help. But again, what? Because their minds are very much connected to like superstitions. And this is one of the things that the Prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to get rid of in people's hearts and in their minds is superstition. That you think in some way that your lucky charm, your lucky, if I wear my lucky shoes, then I'm going to win the game. Or that this little rabbit's foot, if I take this and go to my job interview, that it's going to get me the job. Because what? What's happening now? Your heart is connected to all these things. And they're basically filling a place that only Allah is supposed to have. And so now you've made them partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You've now made shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense, Sheikh Bilal? Okay, tell you. So that's major shirk. Minor shirk. What is minor shirk? Minor shirk is that is basically for you to either do certain things or say certain things that may carry you to major shirk. Certain things that you say and do that are like a vehicle to take you to major shirk. Now the Prophet ﷺ, he said this is almost just as dangerous. He said, أخوف ما أخاف عليكم شرك الأصغر فسئل عنه فقال الرياء. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned an authentic hadith. He said, and he's talking to his companions now. These are the best of people. He said, the thing that I'm most afraid for you, I'm more afraid than anything else, is minor shirk. And they said, what is minor shirk, Ya Rasulullah? فَسُئِلَ عَنْهُ. They asked him. He said, فَقَالَ الرِّيَاء. He said that it's for you showing off. So that example, you might have, when it came for Isha, you may have came up, you made wudu, it was for Allah. You came into the masjid, it was for Allah. You said, Allahu Akbar, it was for Allah. But while you were praying, like I said, you heard some people come in. And those people, when they came in, like I said, you normally would have prayed in like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. But now that you heard people come in, all of a sudden you're not thinking about Allah no more. You're like, ooh, I wonder who's behind me. I got to make sure that they know, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got to make sure that they know that my salat is tight, right? And then all of a sudden they're in the sujood, and instead of just, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, maybe 3, 5 times, 10 times, mashallah, they do like 30, 40 times. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. When you're in the prostration, they take a real long time. But then astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, what am I doing? This is for Allah, I'm not supposed to be doing that. Now all of a sudden, a little portion of his salah wasn't for Allah anymore. That little portion when he was thinking about somebody else. When he made the wudu, it was for Allah. When he started the prayer, it was for Allah. When he was doing his prayer, it was for Allah. But when he heard somebody come in, a little something got in there. Prophet ﷺ, he was afraid for his ummah this. Why? Because it's so easy to fall into. For the most part, actually, if I told you come and bow down to this bottle of water, you'd be like, man, you crazy, and I ain't never coming to your class again. I'm going to let everybody know about you. This imam is crazy. What's going on? Talking about bow down to this bottle of water. That's clear. You would see that. If I said, man, come and, I got this, come to my, to my bed. SubhanAllah. This remind me, I had a class, a world's religions class, and one of the instructors, I kid you not, he made a temple in his basement. I'll never forget this dude. His name is Dan Whitwer. This dude made a temple in his basement and used to invite people to come and pray in his basement in the dark with a strobe light. Wa'iyadhu billah. May Allah protect us. Right? But if he said that to you, you'd be like, man, you crazy. No, I'm not going to. That's shaitan. He's not really going to come at you like that. But, in that other way, just to show off for a little bit, like, when you're giving the sadaqah or the charity, right? Instead of like trying to do it in such a way that you give it and nobody know about it, you like, hold up. All right, and then you put it in there, right? Instead of like making sure nobody looking and then put it in there. No, you like, hold on, right here. Yeah, bring the box over here. Bring the box over here. Let me see. Nah, not this. Nah. I got. That's showing off, right? But the Prophet ﷺ, when he talked about, right, about the people who will go to paradise and they will receive the shade on Yawm al-Qiyamah, a day when there's no shade except the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned one of those people that when they give sadaqah, when they give the charity, their left hand doesn't know what their right hand is giving. That person, if he's so careful and so secretive, can he make shirk? He can't, because he's so careful, he's so diligent, he's so keen about his tawheed that he's not even his own hands don't even know which one the other one is doing. That's how secretive he is, because he wants it only between him and Allah. He only wants it between him and Allah. He don't want nobody else in this act of worship. He don't even want nobody to see. Now, but at any rate, the minor shirk. So some examples of minor shirk, like we said, is, I'm sorry, what's that? The fundraiser, that's something different. There's times where matter of fact, where you should do it in front of everybody. Like Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he did that in front of everybody. 10 times. 10 times he did it for everybody. But what happens is what? That it inspires and it encourages other people at that time. There's times where you should do it in front of people. But that's not the default answer. The default is you should have some deeds that not even your wife knows, not even your kids know. That's just between you and Allah. That's why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned tahajjud. That's after Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. These are the best salat. There is no better salat before these ones. There is no better salat. Sheikh Elijah, there's no better salat than these 5. But after that, the best salat is Salatul Tahajjud, the night prayer. Why? Because it's in the middle of the night. Don't nobody know. You might just sneak out your bed, wife don't even know. You wash up, nobody knows. It's in the middle of the night. Don't nobody see you. Everybody else is asleep. And that's why Allah loves that so much. Because that's some alone time with you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, but at any rate, because I want to just finish this inshallah, some examples of minor shirk would be, like I said, the example that I gave is somebody praying and then they extended their prayer a little longer because they know somebody's watching, or they extend their recitation. Like I said, the sum'ah, they say it so that people can hear them. And any other act that you're doing it, you're not directing it towards them, right? Like you're not praying to them, but you're changing the way that you do it. You're modifying it and trying to beautify that act so that they'll be impressed by you. So you're saying, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't want in any way, shape, form, or fashion your acts of worship that you are thinking about anybody else in any way. So even though when we prayed, you prayed for Allah, you started it by starting for Allah, but when you started modifying it and changing it, trying to make it either better or longer or your voice more beautiful, because you're thinking about somebody else or something else, Allah doesn't want nothing. Matter of fact, He says in Hadith Qudsi, "Ana aghna shuraka'i 'ani shirk." He said, I'm free, I don't need any of that. If you do that, He said, taraktuhu wa shirkuhu. I leave it off. I don't need it at all. I don't care how beautiful that package was. MashaAllah, that was the most beautiful salah. You was crying and tears and snot was coming out your nose. And everything. You was just deep into that ibadah. Taraktuhu wa shirk. Allah says, I don't need it and I left it off and it's not going to benefit you. But again, you can see why. This is another reason why we see how shirk, associated partners with Allah, why it's so dangerous. Because Allah says, I will leave it off. I want nothing to do with it. Tayyib. So, what does that mean then? When I ask somebody to help me, does that mean I'm shirk? If I'm carrying something heavy and I say, brother, can you help me? And should I just make dua to Allah? Huh? If I got a big old bag of groceries? Yeah, Jamal, I'm asking y'all. Is that shirk? I'm associated partners with Allah? Oh, it's not? You sure? You sure, Shay? You sure? Imam, you sure? Okay. That's right. There are certain things when you ask people, there are certain conditions that have to be there in order for it to be that it's not shirk and it's okay to ask people. They have to be present. They have to be alive. And they have to be able to do so. What does that mean? That means what? Like I said, if I'm carrying a heavy box and there's a brother there in a wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair and he's quadriplegic. Y'all know what quadriplegic is? None of your limbs don't work. And I asked his brother, could you help me with the box? Would that make sense? That wouldn't make sense, would it? But if somebody thought like he has some powers or he can do something, somebody might be like, hey, no, somebody has to be able to do it, physically capable. They have to be able to do it. And they have to be alive. And I already gave y'all examples. I've mentioned at least 2 or 3 that sometimes people would go to a dead sheikh or somebody who's righteous or used to be righteous, and then they passed away, and then they would go to them even though they're dead. So the person has to be alive. They have to be able, yani qadirun, hayyun, and they have to be mawjood. They have to be present. Right? Like I said, it can't be somebody far away and you asking the sheikh for something, or you asking someone for something and they're not even there to be able to help you. All right, does that make sense? Long as that's there, then it's not shirk. No problem. That's actually you putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, if you look in your book, I'm not sure, I think it's page maybe 62, 63. It gives a nice little breakdown. It says, are we allowed to ask for anything from dead people or inanimate objects? Inanimate objects, something that's not alive, right? It'll give you the answer, and it's a nice little flow chart. It's a nice little flow chart. If it says yes, what's going to happen? That's blatant shirk, and it contradicts Islam, period. And if you ask for somebody who's dead or an inanimate object, whether it's their prayer or whatever, and you think they can hear you, that means you're associating partners with Allah, because only Allah hears everything. Right? Tayyib. And then it says, and then what I just explained to you about asking somebody who is there, what are the conditions that they have to be there, they have to be able to, and they have to be present. Now, so that's it. So to summarize, inshallah, we said that what? That shirk, which means to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it's in regard to His lordship, or it's in regard associating partners in regards to our worship of Him, or in His names and His attributes, which we'll have to leave for next Thursday, inshallah, to associate partners with Allah in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And there are two types of shirk. There is major shirk, which takes you outside of the fold of Islam, and it destroys and renders all of your deeds useless, and it is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive for the individual who dies upon major shirk. And then there is minor shirk, which is shirk al-asghar, and that is what can take you to, also can take you to major shirk, but it is, examples of it are showing off or doing things for to impress other people, right? And this is minor shirk. طيب. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Now, so inshallah, may give a few minutes for questions if anybody has any, and then if not, then we'll stop here inshallah.